companies have significant presence in Australia, and we're going to talk through how you engage with them, both from a startup point of view, how you take advantage of their ecosystems, and how you leverage their skills and assets in approaching this marketplace. So, welcome. What I will do is, again, after each panelist kind of has a little bit of a response. So again, just feel free to call out or ask a question. If we can get that engagement, it's going to make it nice and interactive for everyone. So Robert, you're kind of the closest to me, so I'll start off with you.
The hot seat.
The hot seat, always the case. Maybe just a general opening in terms of your thoughts on the startup ecosystem in Australia.
Yeah, sure.
And,
so just by way of background, so I've been in Australia for 5 years. This is my second tour of duty. I lived here in the mid-90s, married in Australia, moved back, and lived most of my life in Boston. And I say that because I'm very familiar with the American ecosystem, and when I compare it to Australia, that's the context of the comparison. And I think it's fair to say that the Australian ecosystem is going through a very strong renaissance. And what fascinates me is that many of the people within the ecosystem themselves are unaware of the rate of change. It's analogous to being in a giant aircraft. I spend a lot of time flying in my role. And oftentimes you realize that most people on that aircraft are unaware that it's actually turning until the captain says it's now time to land. And when we look at the local ecosystem, I like to look at it through 3 separate lenses. The first is the talent, which is a combination of the founders that are here and the quality of the founders, as well as the influx of global talent to this part of the world. And I think if you look at that, you're seeing the needle certainly moving. You're seeing programs, and I'm talking Australia-wide, not just Sydney, seeing programs like what the Queensland government is doing to attract startups from around the world using their hot desk initiative. And you're also seeing the quality of founders are maturing and having a more deliberate approach to the way they think about their business. So talent is one. The other is treasure, which is where Malcolm and myself play in, which is the rise in venture capital, both from pure play VC as well as corporate venture. And if you look in the last 3 years, you've seen the shape really start to hit an inflection. Surely we have a long way to go when you compare it to North America or even Israel, but historically it is double, and now we're on track to triple, so that's also a good sign. The third lens is technology, which says, what's the comparison of applied technology, so how many people are building businesses where they're taking technology from different parts of the world and applying it here, versus creating technology in this market. And I think that's where we probably need to move the needle even further. And I know the government is trying to do work to facilitate knowledge transfer from universities into industry to really move the needle on the technology standpoint. But on balance, I'm very bullish on the local market. I think it's exciting times to be an entrepreneur in this market right now. And from someone who works for Salesforce, we were a startup 18 years ago, now we're an adolescent. It's fun to be part of the ecosystem.
Fantastic. And maybe just elaborate a little bit more in terms of Salesforce.com and what you guys are doing specifically to enrich.
So for those of you that are not familiar with Salesforce's story, we started in 1999 with a provocative idea of making enterprise software as easy to use as a book on Amazon. And back then, that was really unthinkable. And that ushered in cloud computing as we know of it today, which is sort of a commonplace mainstream concept. We have grown to become the 4th largest software company on the planet from a standing start in 1999. We have given guidance to 10 billion this year, which is incredible. And having, Kevin Spacey said, when you make it to the top, you got to send the elevator back down, right? And I think that's the way I think about the ecosystem right now in terms of empowering the ecosystem. And what we try to do is to find ways to help startups build on our technologies and grow using our stuff. But then also, we also have a corporate venture fund that identify a subset of those that fit a thesis that can enrich our ecosystem, the Salesforce ecosystem, and become portfolio companies.
Fantastic. So build and grow, and obviously that ecosystem to enrich. And then if maybe I'll just turn it over to yourself, Alex. I guess leading on from that is how do these organisations or startups actually engage with Google, and companies like the ones represented here to do what was just represented by Robert.
All right. Well, it depends on the presence in the market. You guys would have seen, I know Salesforce has actually been really great at sending the elevator down. We've partnered with Salesforce to support the local startup industry body called Startup Australia, and they go into Canberra and represent the startup industry on policy ideas and how to actually change the conversation in Canberra. And a lot of that led to the National Innovation and Science Agenda, which you've probably heard about, and some of these policies that have allowed more venture capital growth in Australia. And you're right, this is a fantastic time to actually be part of the community here, because we're not just seeing corporate investment, angel investment, VC investment, and growing knowledge about all those fields, but even the Australian superannuation industry is starting to create products that are focused on this field. So it's a fantastic time to be a startup founder. But it isn't just the industry body that we need to represent the startups here. We've seen competition from all around the states in Australia, where people are creating these startup incubators, accelerators, and there's a growth in institutional knowledge that we're seeing as well. We sponsor the Fishburners Startup Incubator. Fishburners Startup Incubator, gotcha. Which is a place, a not-for-profit, which it's a co-working space really, where startups can go and work. And we actually, our engineers, we've got about a 650 strong engineering team here in Australia, and they go down and essentially mentor the startups down at Fishburners. If there might be someone working on an artificial intelligence startup that could benefit from knowledge from Google engineers, and we have a big artificial intelligence training program internally. So I would advise big corporates to think about, and startups who want to interact with us, to think about what is the problem you're trying to solve, and what are the organizational capabilities of the people that you're trying to interact with, because startup founders are frantically busy, and they often don't have time to think about the policy ideas and the things that are affecting their business in that way, but also need, if they're going to have an interaction with someone at a major corporate, they need to have a real problem they're trying to solve and understand how they're trying to target that problem. So the advice that I would give is to really think about the problem that you're trying to solve and why it is that the organisation that you're talking to are the people that can help you solve that problem for you.
And at a tactical level, I mean, how does that play out? Do you host events, or how does that engagement or interaction start? Because there'll be people that just don't actually know how to do it. They're very good at what they do. They're very good at the innovation side, but in terms of reaching out and engaging, what is represented here is very, very big companies. We're not easy to navigate.
That's right.
How do we do that?
Yeah, so you need people that have contacts inside Google, for example, and the best people to go would be to, for example, that's why we fund the industry body, so that the startups can go to their industry body, Startup Australia, and I'd recommend that if you need a contact at one of the big companies, reach out to Startup Australia. The alternative is, if you're located in an incubator or an accelerator already, the person who runs that place probably has some contacts that you can reach out to, and also can help shape the message or the pitch that you're trying to put forward when you go and talk to those people. So I would advise going through people who actually have those relationships and making sure that when you go and talk to someone, nobody's time is being wasted.
Yeah, fantastic. So established organisations that have links into you guys already.
Right.
Okay. I just to check, how are we going up the back in terms of being able to hear? Are you guys okay?
It's a little better.
Okay.
It's a little better, but the higher the better.
Okay. And I've got a question that I'll come on to Malcolm, but before I do, just because it is a bit hard, has anyone from the floor got anything they want to say? Apologies? You want us to come down?
We can come forward.
That's just a stand up. Okay, so Malcolm, I guess continuing again on from that, what advice do you give corporate companies like ourselves on how to engage with the ecosystem, so going the other way, instead of them coming to us?
Sure. So Cisco, that's kind of good going through, because you kind of get to echo the goodness of the other speakers, and picking up on Robert's position of Salesforce. So Cisco is also born of the startup ecosystem, 1984, spin out of Stanford Uni, and so maybe moving on as a lesson into that, kind of. I wouldn't say middle age yet, but still think there's a bit more freshness in the step. But a phase of life where we've really grown into who we are, and we've actually had to figure out how to add to the story. And that's, I guess, where my role comes in. It was 10 years of sticking to the knitting before Cisco actually changed its model and acquired its first business. So that's quite a long journey for a startup, and it's actually not atypical, I would think, before you start to say, all right, now we've figured out our business, we can see great opportunity over here, let's add to our business by maybe an acquisition. So we made our first acquisition in 1993, so nearly 10 years. We then have since then made 190 acquisitions. So we've kind of got a taste of something which really allows us to bring outside innovation in, and we've refined a model which works very well. I think the rule of thumb is 2/3 of acquisitions destroy value. We've obviously decided to keep actively acquiring because I think we've solved a lot of that problem, and we have an amazing integrations team who acquire companies, bring them in. This is a bit of a sidetrack, but their ability to retain the entrepreneurs and the people within those acquired businesses is second to none. So that's one of our sort of really proud metrics that we use. Anyway, so then we built up a program over the next nearly over 2 decades to today, where we have both our 10-year acquisition sort of engine and also a $2 billion global venture capital investing activity. And that's primarily what I do here in Australia. I came on board 16 months ago because we also saw Australia as had a really important inflection point in the life cycle of early stage and venture, and we've had some great success in the recent times, which is confirming that it is the right time to be here. So our journey has been one of patient model development, but clearly recognising that an outwards-in orientation is really important to growing our business and creating that sustained differentiation in the market. So in terms of sort of genericizing ideas and suggestions, we're seeing great uptake across a number of Australia-based organisations wanting to engage in the early stage ecosystem. We're just speaking earlier actually with a couple of folks in the audience about Telstra Ventures, deployed probably $300 million today globally, some in Australia, some offshore. I think they've now got 30 plus companies in their portfolio and really establishing their program. Right through to someone like Aussie Post, which has made a commitment of $20-odd million to exploring how to engage in the innovation ecosystem. And for me, that's basically reflecting an idea of, if you're in a startup, you would probably want to iterate, be relatively open to sampling and trialing. That would be one of my key things, is explore different models. Go down paths that people have already treading. So we touched on something like fish burners. It's a really fantastic place amongst many co-working spaces around the country where you can actually start to get exposure in a very light touch way to even just the dynamic of working in a early stage environment. And for the large organisations, I would encourage taking desks and cycling staff down just to at least start to sample that. We run an innovation lab, which brings in our customers, Cisco and young high growth companies, to do problem solving. So we have a model which we try and bring things together, and that's still being iterated. We've got 9 of those around the planet, but we're still working out what the best way to make that work is. Through to looking at early stage investment funds. I think Aussie Post's model of let's get involved with a number of accelerators is not a bad one. The other one we actually also do is not just invest directly, but we go into venture funds as a limited partner. And that's a really, really useful way of getting a sense for a market and letting someone else do the hard work whilst learning. Okay, that's a bunch of
So the innovation lab concept is an interesting one, and a lot of organisations, particularly tech companies, are setting up these to allow the fast churn of innovation in an ecosystem. Have you got any advice to other organisations on how to set that up and how to go about it, and maybe programs to run that touch the startup community?
I would underscore the collaborative nature of the entire early stage space and really try and leverage what's existing rather than stand up a brand new facility. There's just so much goodwill, openness, recognition that better together is actually a great way to build momentum. That I would probably lean towards surveying the market and trying to partner rather than necessarily go it alone.
If I can add to that, I think what's fascinating, just to broaden the lens a little bit, because in looking at the attendee list, it was obvious that there are more corporates here this evening as opposed to startups themselves. So I'm sure many of you are thinking about how how do we shape our business to take advantage of what's going on in the marketplace. And to Malcolm's point, it seems to me that corporates are trying to pull one of three levers. Either they're exploring corporate venture funds, they're exploring labs, or they're exploring somehow partnering or sponsoring what's going on in the ecosystem. But the most, regardless of what you do, I think the fundamental point comes down to mindset, right? I'm reading this fascinating book at the moment by Joy Ito, who is the head of the MIT Media Lab. And he talks about, it's called Whiplash. And he talks about, his fundamental thesis is that we are at a state in time now where the human brain has lost the ability to comprehend the change of technology around us and the impact that it's going to have. And the analogy he uses, which is fascinating, he says, in steady state times, it's like we create ideas similar to buying furniture and putting it in a house. And you get different pieces of furniture, those are different ideas that you collect. But now, because of what's going on, many people call it the fourth industrial revolution, it's as though the structure of the house is changing. And you have to think about how you redesign the house for the future. And he talks about 9 concepts in there, but I think there are 2 that are relevant to this conversation. One is an appetite for risk, right? And regardless of which lever you pull, if you don't have the right risk appetite, you're going to constrain the outcome. And then the second one is having a diversity of ideas or diversity of people within the room to inform those ideas. And he talks about cognitive diversity, which is you want to have as many people from different experiences, whether that be gender or geography or whatever else it is, so that you have cognitive diversity within your initiatives. And I think if you can hit those 2 things, you're probably well on your way to redesigning the house as opposed to moving the furniture around.
The bit I was very keen to add is executive support, because some of the stuff takes a while to generate outcomes. Skunk Works, I think, can be great. I've actually come from the startup sector and 16 months into a big corporate environment, and without a really strong champion with significant resources to be able to continue to support your efforts, I suspect programs will potentially come from.
There's a question here.
When would we come to you? Because you've just said that your company is as large as you are. Did you say 130 companies for the last years?
100, yeah.
And what do those companies do? Are they all the same message, or is one water, is one bricks, is one curing cancer? What are you buying? I'm just curious.
Yeah, actually, and that's really important. So we have a program which is always trying to extend our existing business. Google, could speak to Google, but some organisations will probably look for really radically different businesses to move into. So our model has three basic approaches. First of all, we go out and do the massive platform buys. So this year we spent $3.7 billion buying a company called App Dynamics, which is about cloud-based application monitoring. Pretty IT tech, but what that is taking us from being a switching, computing, sort of pipes company to now helping applications run really well. And that's a big spend for us. We then add bolt-ons to that, which is where we see gaps to extend our strategy, and that's basically building small business on top. And then every now and then we see these amazing teams of people who are exceptional, and they're our smallest acquisitions, we call it tech and talent, and we bring those in. So we're actually doing a variety of models. In general, we're either buying a brand new platform or extending our existing business. Most of what I do is extending our existing business, either through things where we can add value back to a company we've invested in by co-selling, or we actually, at the other end of the spectrum, is where we might do a bit of market learning. So we don't today have a product in artificial intelligence or machine learning, but we recognise that's an important space, so we need to learn about it. So we will take a number of investments in small companies to learn from those companies. And along the way, they'll benefit from us as we learn and start to develop products to accelerate them.
Do you ever diversify? Would you look at a product that has absolutely nothing to do with any of that? In the health industry, in the water, in development, in building buildings, new
Probably
materials?
not. No, so our and the detail in the answer is we have $60 billion on the balance sheet. We turn over, $50 odd billion a year. We deploy only about $200 million a year in investment capital. We're looking to make sure we, make venture-style returns on that investment, which means, investing to cover our cost of capital. But really, what we're trying to do is learn, and that learning needs to be relevant to our existing business in some way. So wouldn't move the needle from a financial perspective by deploying $200 million a year, doubling that to $400 million, and going, well, job well done, but actually did nothing for our cash balance or our revenue growth.
Okay. What about Google? Do you look at anything different?
We tend to focus on really, really big bets if we're going to make those big acquisitions. So YouTube would be one, and then throw a lot of resources behind them, and then more recently DeepMind, which does a lot of artificial intelligence work in the UK, for example. So it's more about, for us, the combination of having a vision for the future and seeing something that really helps a company that helps to flesh that out, and then at the same time acquiring a team, like you said. For us, it's most important to actually get the right people inside the company that are the top people in their field working on this problem, and B, that are a cultural fit for Google and we think will work well within the company.
But you stay in that circle. You don't ever venture out of it.
Well, the circle, it's more of like a cone, right? You see the future, you want to see the future is out here, and the range of possible futures is out here, and you want to say, get a company that will help you progress down that cone towards the future that you envisage and that you think will be beneficial for your business and hopefully humanity.
So we've got a couple of other questions. Sorry, yep.
Just to emphasise the point, Malcolm, I think you mentioned around executive support. There's a roadshow happening at the moment with Qantas and Slingshot, where they give access to those organisations that are picked up, and those are in the travel industry that Qantas want to nurture and to mentor and to help. But I think the answer is probably, if you've got a large organisation in a different sector, healthcare, is to find an incubator that you can partner up with.
That's a good point. And Frederick, you had a question?
Just got a question on what are the key measurables that you look when you evaluate the startup? So we're not talking about YouTube when you're going by YouTube, but the startup. What are the key things? Because
From an investment standpoint or from a partnering standpoint?
both, please, because I think we'll be all in that situation, which would be either we want to be a partner or be acquired. So what are the key things that you look into? Do you look at people? Do you look at cash flow? Do you look at
So I can take a stab at that. So and then I'm sure Malcolm has a view as well.
Always have a view.
So I think as an investor, you're fundamentally trying to answer two questions, right? In broad terms. One is this market interesting? Like, is it big enough that you can have a disproportionate outcome? And then two is this the team that can get it done? Right? Because most startups you're betting on people, right? Unlike investing in private equity or in anything else where you've got a track record of publicly listed data that you can go analyze, you don't have that. Even if a startup gives you a business plan, it's all phantom, right? So you're looking into the eyes of the founder and saying, is this person going to stay in the hunt, right? Or stay in the fight? For us specifically, though, I think for corporate ventures, you have to have a clearly defined thesis or strategy that differentiates you from your traditional venture capitalists on the street. For us at Salesforce, and this goes back to your question, we start with software as a service companies in general. So our investment strategy is to grow the ecosystem of software as a service companies, but then those companies that enrich our specific ecosystem by either building natively on Salesforce or integrating to our stack or helping our customers be more successful. We look at certain traction, so we're not early stage. We don't do seed investment. We look at Series A and above, so the startup has had some repeatable success, and they've got an ARR of multiple millions, which is a proxy of saying that they have figured it out, and now they just know how to scale. Because that's where we can be helpful in helping them add velocity to escape. So that's the way we think about it.
Yeah, probably pretty similar. My simple, kind of worldview is sort of three circles. Talk about a market and a need and a problem. Talk about how you'll address that need and that problem, and then coming out of that, what that means in terms of being a business and creating financial outcomes. that's sort of market or customer-led pitching versus we've built this great thing. We're trying to work out where it gets used, so product-led. It's not my preferred way. And then traction. Traction is a really important demonstration that someone's validating what you're doing. Investors come to the story, I think, once there's something to believe in, and at the very beginning you might engage at the seed stage with people who will invest based on their belief in you as individuals with no traction in terms of the business at that point, but you might actually have a great track record or ability to communicate and bring people along on the journey. At a Series A stage, you're starting to really demonstrate that actually there's a customer who's coming with you on that journey. And then a Series B stage is that there are many customers in many different locations who are travelling with you on that journey. So for me, traction is my favourite word.
So for us, I guess it would be two things: have a mission that matters, and then are the people at your company the right people to execute on that mission? So, for example, we bought DeepMind for $400 million when it was building systems that could beat 80s computer games, and that doesn't sound like a very good commercial opportunity, but at the same time, the guy who runs it is one of the most brilliant minds in computer science in the world, and their problem, their mission was to solve intelligence, and we thought that was amazing, and it's led to huge breakthroughs at Google. For example, we rolled out that technology to decrease electricity costs at our data centers by 40%, based on this same technology that's being used to beat these computer games being rolled out to beat adjusting the electricity consumption of our data centers over time. That, like, as you can imagine, Google data centers are a huge part of our costs as a business. And so to be able to take something from over here and then see the myriad applications for it and investing on that basis with some imagination, that's where we come from. Get the right people and make sure they have a mission they care about.
Thank you.
I'm an IP lawyer, so I'm going to ask an IP-focused question. When you're looking at businesses to invest in, is IP something you think at the beginning, or is it something that you think of as something that lawyers will have to deal with later on?
So absolutely, you've got to have your IP, strategy knuckled down. It definitely, comes secondary to me to my other favourite word, which is traction. To people, it's actually even a higher ranking word than traction, but assuming that you get that vision from those folks, traction is there. The IP part of it is, it really does come for me once we've fallen in love, we've bought into the vision, we can recognise the resources required, we've found others who want to be there on that journey with us as investors, and we're saying, but at the same time, if you just have a sense for either one, this is maybe relatively easily replicated, then, and I actually, this is a sort of very wishy-washy answer, but I operate on the basis that all the good ideas have been had, and it's about great execution. Now, IP strategy becomes really important in a good execution of strategy, but it has to come on the back of good commercial success.
I would answer that slightly different than saying, just broadening your question, which is one of the questions I often ask founders is, what is your superpower? Right? What's going to make your company? To Malcolm's point, there are very few good ideas out there. And I challenge you, think of a great idea, go Google it. You probably see 10 companies already doing it. So then what is your superpower? Because you can still get into the fight, and you can probably out-execute and still win. And you may say, my superpower is just, I'm just going to sprint faster than the competition. IP becomes a superpower if it's a really breakthrough technology, right? There are a lot of companies running around saying, we are machine learning for this. Now, so much so that you now have to question the intrinsic value of the capability, and that's where you want to spend some time understanding the IP behind it. But certainly for a technology-based company, IP is important to us, but it's not the only thing.
It depends what you're buying would be the answer, I think. If you're buying it for the IP, then it becomes very, very important. If you're buying it for the founders or other reasons, then it's less.
Yeah, and we have a spectrum of things, and we have what we describe as our core. things which we can see we can pick up from a IP generating organisation and put into that. I mean, it's a transportable type of IP, and if I think of an easy analogy, you think of a molecule is discovered, a drug delivery company can market that and distribute it. That's a pick up the IP and move it over here. We can do that with core technologies. When it becomes spaces that we're trying to evolve our business into, recurring revenue software, collaboration in the cloud, it becomes much more about the revenue model, and it's much more about how we actually sell that. And so it is a bit horses for courses. So yeah, have to get specific on the answer actually.
So I'll just round out the discussion a little bit. So I want to give you guys time to network again at the end. But we've talked about big ideas. We've talked about the ecosystem outside coming in, so small to big. But how do big corporates maintain that culture of innovation and entrepreneurship? Because, oh, sorry, I probably wasn't loud enough. But the questions regarding the culture within a big corporate environment. How do we maintain or encourage entrepreneurship and that kind of fast-paced innovation within a large corporate? So I might direct this one to you, Alex, to start us.
Yeah, sure. I think people have to care about what they're doing. You need to make sure that you're doing something that matters, and so you can get the best people in the world want to work on the difficult problems that will actually solve things for people in their everyday lives. And so if you have that mission, if you're going to solve, Tesla, for example, is going to solve carbon emissions, from what I hear, if your founder would have anything to say about it. And that's a big, gnarly problem, and you get amazing people who want to work on things like that. The other thing, but that's the big picture stuff, right? That if you want to get down to the weeds in terms of how you want your staff to behave, I would say you need to have a relatively flat organisation. People need to feel like they have the power to act, and they have the power to actually make changes and work towards that goal. And you need to empower them so that they can actually do that. And so that can be worked into the way that you, even to the extent that you set up your budgets, to give people the ability to go out and make decisions and make changes themselves. The people who you want to recruit, the really talented, really motivated people, will respond to that, respond to getting that responsibility.
Any other comments on that?
And I'll add something, because it's something we think about a lot at Salesforce, and it's something we've had conversations with a number of companies in this local market. And it goes back to my earlier comments when I was referencing that book. And it's, failure is a word that most people don't like to use, right, myself included. But the reality is, I prefer to describe it as having a mindset where you're prepared to learn. Some people talk about this thing about a growth mindset. And I think we live in times now where it's easier to experiment from a technology standpoint, right? Based on cloud computing and other capabilities, you can experiment for pennies on the dollar that you would have had to a decade ago or 2 decades ago. So now, to your point, it's empowering the workforce to know that it's okay to try new things. And if it don't work out, it's not a career-limited move, providing that you're not incompetent and unethical. And I think a large part of that is what behaviors are modeled by the leadership and what behaviors are rewarded by the organization. Right? What things do you celebrate? What things do you talk about? That whole sort of water cooler culture dynamic is vitally important for driving that cultural mindset, to embrace risk and to have that diversity, that cognitive diversity that I talked about earlier.
So I'll just make one comment around the flat organisation before we round up. And I don't think that's necessarily capable for all companies. And mine's a good example. It's a huge organisation. It's globally one of the top 10 organisations in the world. So we're very hierarchical by nature. But what we empower is systems that cut through that hierarchy and enable the innovation at every level. So we've kind of come to the conclusion that sometimes silos and hierarchy are there for a reason, but we run an innovation program that's called TIP, and it's equally accessible to everyone in the organisation, and it collapses it for that particular approach or system or structure, and enables everyone from grassroots to the top. And it's got a lot of different capabilities beyond that as well in terms of other programs. But sometimes the hierarchy can't be collapsed because we're a 140-year-old company, it's not there. So you need to concentrate on structures that do allow that capability.
One of the other things to follow up on that would be to think big. I mean, it's almost a cliche now, but that 10x thinking don't think about what you need to be doing that incremental improvement on a day-to-day basis. We all understand that, but encourage your staff to actually think about those big ideas. Think about things that would not just give your business that extra 5% next year, but would times your business by 10 and change the world, because that's what people want to work on.
Okay.
Malcolm, you talked about Startup Australia. Is that the one that Brian Scher's behind?
These guys,
Startup Oz.
I'm a big supporter of
Startup Oz is the organization,
Oh,
and it's run by Alex McCauley, who's the CEO.
It's a fantastic organisation. We're all supporters of it.
Sure, and if, just parting comments, if anyone wants to really get their head around the startup ecosystem, go to Startup Oz, download the Crossroads report, it's about that thick, and it gives you an incredible appreciation of all of the things that we talked about here today.
That's iPad thick, by the way.
So guys, thank you so much for your time. We're going to do the door prize. Alex, do you want to draw and announce?
All right. We have Sharon Williams from Taurus.
Congratulations, Sharon. But that concludes the panel discussion. We're going to stick around for a little bit for the networking, so feel free to come up to any of us or engage yourself. We're on until about 7, and see you at the next event. Thank you.